Hey, how's everyone doing out there? Thanks for joining me and my special guest, a good friend of mine, Ivan Orozco. He has been a life insurance agent with Leakin Heritage for nearly a decade. Ivan, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Daniel. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. So today we're going to be talking about final expense, otherwise known as funeral advantage at some points. But let's start off to our guests that may not know what life insurance is or what funeral expense is. Can you break that down for us?
So the easiest way that I like to describe this to my fellow clients is right now, a lot of families, God forbid, when someone passes away, most of the times it's
Yeah,
unexpected. It could be because of an accident. It could be because of natural causes. We recently had a pandemic. Um,
yeah,
when someone passes away, they're having to do car washes, GoFundMe, raffling off TVs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So a final expense life insurance, the main purpose of it is to help families avoid GoFundMe, avoid having to do all the asking for money and getting the money to be able to pay for a funeral. Final expense is exactly what it sounds like. It's your final expense, which is the funeral. But I like to call it the last act of love that you leave behind to your family, because whoever gets a plan, if they pass away, they call us, and at the same time, they know the funeral is going to get paid for, which allows the family to focus more on the loved one, allows them to focus more on, being united as a family. And, instead of, hey, Daniel, can you go out there and start a GoFundMe while I'll go over here and do a yard sale? And if you don't help out with a lot of money and I do, now I'm mad at you. And that's what happens in a lot of families. So, that's one of the main keys is that we want to avoid is we want families to be united during that time and not have to stress about the finances.
right. No, absolutely. No, I think you point out something there. I've noticed a lot of GoFundMe's happening, unfortunately, within the community when someone passes, and there could be some arguments, right? One family member
Mhm.
doing it and someone else doing something, and but at a critical time when someone is no longer around for them, they should be mourning the right way. Absolutely. And so
Right.
when they're looking to get coverage, so to speak, what is it that they should be looking for? What is it that they should be asking? What is the final expense include for a funeral cost? How much are they costing nowadays?
Well, nowadays, it all depends also on the demographic of where you're at.
Hmm.
Cities are more expensive. Towns that are a little more rural are a little bit less expensive, because you got
Okay.
to keep in mind that, especially when it comes to burials, when it comes to big cities, they don't have that much free land compared to, farming towns where there's a lot of land.
Right.
So right now, what I've seen is the average cost for a cremation is a little under $5,000. And I know
Not
that
bad.
there's families that are paid less, and I know that there's families that are paid more. But if you want to have something simple, beautiful, elegant, being able to give that person their proper send off, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
For a cremation, you're not looking no more than between 3 to 4 grand. You know what I mean? But when it
Okay.
comes to burial, that's where it gets a little iffy, Daniel. And one of the things that I do when I sit down with clients, I don't just go in there, hey, here's your quote, thank you, goodbye. I like to leave the client with some education so that way when it happens, they're not lost. They're not like, who do we call? How much it's going to be? And I'll find out right now, most burials will be between 10 to 15. Again, it all depends on what type of casket. It depends on what kind of flowers. It depends on what kind of service, where they're going to be buried. Are you buying a single or a double lot? So I like
Okay.
to ask these questions ahead of time. That way, when I put them on the plan, I put them on the correct plan. Like, I'm not going to give somebody that wants cremation a burial plan. Why? Because they're
Right.
overpaying. Again, I want to save clients money, but at the same time, you asked about what kind of stuff should they be looking for.
Yeah.
Now, I will mention to you that when it comes to Lincoln, people are able to get a plan. They're able to get a plan, and I like to show my clients these type of pamphlets so that way they can follow along with me. And I also
Okay.
leave this behind for them to read. in case later on they want to read a little more. But they can get a plan from 1,000 to 35,000. Meaning, at the end of the day, Daniel, you have the full power to choose the plan that you either need or you're able to afford at the time, because you could also increase it in the future. I always say something is better than nothing. With this plan, number one, no physical exam required. No doctor will come to your house to pull blood, urine, check your weight or your blood pressure. I just ask 9 simple questions. Based on how you answer me is how I'm able to give you a quote. Rates can never be increased, meaning even if your health changes in the future, Daniel, your plan stays the same. Okay. Your plan will never go up. The only way it can go up is if you increase it in the future. Hey, Ivan, I got this plan. I changed my mind. I don't want cremation. I now want burial. Okay, Daniel, let me stop by your house. Let's get you the sufficient coverage needed. In other words, let's add on to what you have already. Okay. Also, these plans do build cash value, meaning that in a period of time, it starts to accrue this little, it's a small little account. It's useful in case you want to borrow from it in case of an emergency in the future. Or remember, we just went through a pandemic, and during that time, a lot of people lost their jobs. And because of that, they didn't have no income and they were worried to lose their plan. But this plan builds cash value in the future, where if you need to, you can use some of that money for future payments.
Wow.
In other words,
Wow,
so it's a great help. Now, in the event that someone passes away, we pay the claims within 24 hours as soon as we receive required documentation, which is a copy of the death certificate. And by the way, I don't need a photo. I don't need a paper copy. I just need a clean photocopy. Send me a photo. It's much more convenient for the client and so forth. So the benefits that do come with this plan added on, the first one is what's called Funeral Consumer Garden Society. It's a company that only works with us. Their sole purpose is, say, for example, you and I are brothers. I pass away. Daniel, are you ready right now to go to a funeral home and exactly know what everything costs and what's the process and all of that?
No.
Okay. So Funeral Consumer Garden Society works with us, where they will get the information from the client beforehand. It's like the client is preparing their funeral. I know it's easy for us to set up a sweet 16, a quinceañera, a birthday party, a wedding, an anniversary party, graduation party. It's easy for us to set those up,
right?
To plan one, but no one's planning their funeral. And the reason why I always tell clients to prepare it ahead of time or let us know exactly what they want is because if I pass away and you were my brother, and then we have mom and dad and other brothers and sisters, and I never told you what I wanted, maybe half of my family wants to cremate me and the other half wants to bury me. Guess what just happened? Fights.
Right.
So to avoid all of that, it's always good to leave behind what is it that you want, because you're getting a plan and you're leaving money behind for it, which means you can choose whatever you want. Okay. So Funeral Consumer Garden Society, their whole purpose is to call up to 4 different funeral homes to look to see if there's any possible way to help you save money during that time. They're going to look at the quote. They're going to make sure that whatever doesn't need to be there gets taken out. So they save time and money to the loved ones during that grieving moments. Remember, you're not in your 5 senses during those times. So what's going to happen is, I'm not saying funeral homes are bad, but they're going to try to sell you the most elegant things. Hey, nice casket, but look at that one over there. Oh, nice flowers, but look at that forest. Like they're basically trying to upsell you sometimes, right?
Okay.
And it's very easy for that price to start going up and up and up, where there's been people that have paid $15,000, even $20,000 for a funeral. We're here to help people basically hold their hand during that time. And that's actually a free benefit that comes with our plan. A second benefit, which is very, very low in cost. I mean, we're talking less than $10, or even in some cases, less than $5 at more a month, is what's called the accidental death plan. And that means that if the client, whoever owns the policy, passes away in natural causes, well, they're leaving behind the money that they picked, the plan that they picked. But if they pass away in an accident, not only are they going to leave the money they picked, but they leave extra money behind depending on the type of accident. And I
Wow.
mean,
And that is
if
called accidental death.
accidental death, it's a rider.
Wow.
So in other words, I'll use myself as an example. I got a $15,000 plan. That means if I pass away of natural causes, my family's going to receive $15,000 to be able to pay for everything when it comes to my funeral.
Okay.
Whatever money is
Right.
left over stays with my family. Okay.
Okay.
But if I pass away in a regular accident, I tripped and fell, hit my head, I choke, I drown, I get ran over, I get murdered, my family, depending on what type of accidental death, but the main one that I usually offer to my clients, in those circumstances, the clients would receive $25,000 extra.
Wow.
If
On
I'm
top of
on top of the 15,000, for example, in this example that I'm giving you. So technically, if that were the case and I got murdered, my family wouldn't get 15, they would get $40,000 total. My funeral is not going to be 40 grand, but now I left a little extra money behind because what if I'm the main breadwinner? Or what if my kids are still living in my house? That money will go for food, shelter, their school. It would help out for them to get used to this life without me. Okay. If I pass away in a car accident, I'm driving, I'm the passenger, car crashes, I die. My family would get 15 plus 50, so 65,000. Okay. If I'm using any form of public transportation, airplane, boat, taxi, subway, Uber, Lyft, these type of things, and say the plane went down, the boat sank, those type of situations. Right now, we're hearing about all these trains getting derailed. Okay. If I'm in a train gets derailed and I die because of that, my family would get $100,000 extra. And act of war or terrorism. Act of war right now, if people are paying attention to the news, we've been hearing a lot of talk regarding World War III. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, that is, a scary subject for many people.
Yeah.
But also, when it comes to terrorism, a lot of people don't know that this includes domestic terrorism, like all this racial profiling of people walking into stores and shooting up the place. It also includes the school shootings in our schools, our kids' schools.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But since 9/11, under the new Patriot Act, gang violence is also considered domestic terrorism. So if you and I are standing outside your house, Daniel, and let's say gang members want to shoot your neighbors for some reason, but a bullet hits us,
Right.
that's
Okay.
$100,000 extra to the family. Now, Daniel, do you travel?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you ever catch yourself more than 200 miles away from home?
Sometimes.
Okay. If you were to ever pass away, for example, I live in Salinas. If I'm in LA, I'm over 300 miles away. If I were to pass away, they're not going to let my family throw me in the trunk and take me back home. So the cost of transferring my body back to Salinas costs money. Once that money is paid and you send me the bill or the receipt, Lincoln Heritage will reimburse up to $5,000 of what it costs to transport my body back home.
Oh, wow.
Because we don't know where we're going to be when that day comes. You know what I mean? So
definitely not.
So in a nutshell, that's the Funeral Advantage Plan, Lincoln Heritage, also known as Golden Memorial. That's how these plans work. The main purpose is for us to be able to insure families of the most guaranteed thing that's going to happen in the future, which is we pass away.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why I told you that I like to call it the last act of love.
And it is. I mean, leaving something behind to
Correct.
your loved ones and family is the last act of love. And if you can just say one thing, I know we touched on it just a little bit as we wrap up here.
Mm-hmm.
The main thing between people doing like a GoFundMe page or something like this, what would you encourage people to look at getting a final expense plan and not waiting for their family to do a GoFundMe? What would you say about that?
I'm gonna say something that I know might trigger people. Okay.
Okay.
But I also want them to see the other side of the coin in this. Now, Daniel, do you know whose responsibility it is to pay for my funeral?
You maybe anybody.
By the way,
Your
are you
family.
aware, like right now, Daniel, are you aware that you're going to pass away in the future?
Yeah.
Okay. So the responsibility of my funeral falls on me. I know it's
Yeah.
I know it's my funeral. I know that I sit down with a lot of parents and they say, no, it's my children. No. And I know because maybe our parents didn't do that for us. Okay. But
Okay.
here's the thing. When someone is doing a GoFundMe, they're basically asking us to assume the responsibility of paying for your loved one's funeral when they were not responsible to have something set up to pay for their own funeral. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. So when people are doing all these GoFundMes, and especially now, after a pandemic, when a lot of people lost a lot because they weren't making money during a year or more, a lot of people right now, whatever money they get is enough to feed their family, pay their bills. Now, you're going to ask me to donate money I don't have. And if I don't donate money, you're going to get upset at me. So is it fair for people to always rely on GoFundMe? No. I know the law states that you have to have car insurance and that you have to have home insurance, but you are never guaranteed that you're going to crash and you're never guaranteed that your house will burn down. But everybody is guaranteed that they're going to pass away, but nobody insures it, Daniel. So for people that rather use these other forms of options to be able to pay for a funeral, it's fine, but they shouldn't always have to rely on strangers and on people when they can insure a baby that's over 15 days old, or I'm sorry, a month old. I'm sorry, it's a month old from someone that's 85 years of age and younger. So during that time, you can insure almost anybody, people with no socials or I-10, people that already have cancer, dementia, strokes, heart attacks, diabetes.
Wow.
We're taking all these people and insuring you, but a lot of people unfortunately wait till the very last, breath. I have people calling me, hey, I have my grandma in the hospital. Can you help her? I can't walk into a hospital. I can't walk into a jail or prison. If you already have AIDS or a terminal illness or under hospice care, unfortunately, I can't help you. So I always tell people, get it now, because if you don't mind me asking, Daniel, how old are you right now?
44.
44. If you answer a certain way, all the health questions I ask you, and let's say your health is great, you actually qualify for a 20-year plan, Daniel, which means when you're 64, no more payments. But from 64 to age 100, your plan is free. So you don't pay forever. So I tell clients, look, it's good to insure your little kids. Why? Yes, as a parent, we don't want our children to pass away, but we're not with them 24/7.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But if you get your child a policy, and let's say your child's 5 years old, that means when your child's 25, from 25 to 100, it's free. So
Better get it earlier.
get your children that gift.
Right.
Something our parents didn't do for us, but we can do that for our children. And they're not expensive, Daniel. The plans start from $15 and up, depending on the amount of coverage, depending on your age, and depending if you're a man or a woman.
It's not bad at all. 18 to $15 for a guarantee that your family's gonna get something to cover your final expense when that day comes.
I mean, I just sat down with a family of I just sat down with a family of 3 people, and because of the plan that she got a bigger plan for herself, but she got a very small plan for her children. For 3 people, Daniel, it came out to $74. For 4 people, because obviously she got a little less coverage, it came out to $93. But notice, I insured 4 people for $93. That's not even $100.
Wow.
But
That's great.
how much money do we spend when we go out and eat? How much money do we spend on our phones,
Right.
on the
More
internet,
than that.
on stuff that we don't need sometimes? So we should have something in place. That way we're able to give not one, but our families the proper send-off that they deserve, because a funeral is a celebration of someone's life. Okay. But remember, when I told you about FCGS, where they help even maybe look for some type of lower costs, that's like having another plan in itself, Daniel. Because if you don't have nothing, you are going to pay 100% what the funeral home tells you, which can be 15, 18,000, because you don't know what the costs are.
Right.
You're just
right,
going to
right.
sign and let's come up with the money. So by having that company helping you out during the first week of when someone passes away, that's a huge help. I've had clients call me at 2 a.m. Yeah, exactly. And they do answer in the middle of the night.
Wow.
They're there. I mean, because one of my model when it comes to this business, when I work on Saturdays, I work on Sundays, I work on holidays, is that death doesn't take a day off. So why should I? You know what I mean? So,
That's true.
but again, that's one of the things that I would tell people, that stop going to what everybody else is doing, which everybody else is basically leaving this debt to other people. That it's not fair to ask them for that, especially during these times when people are, like I said, are penny pinching and holding on with as much money as possible.
Yeah.
But this will take care of basically that added stress when someone passes away.
Wow, man. I thank you so much for joining us and educating us and serving our community and family members for close to a decade. And if you're looking for some final expense coverage, I'd love to reach out and speak with Ivan. Information will be provided in the link below. Thank you so much for joining us. Ivan, thank you so much, brother. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Daniel. And I hope that people do take you up on that offer, at least to get educated. You know what I mean? But I do appreciate all your kind words, and also for allowing me to have a platform to be able to educate others.
Anytime, anytime. All right.